Back. We're continuing our discussion of chapter 8 of Mishnah Berachot, things having to do with disagreements between Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai in matters of blessings, particularly blessings having to do in relation with Shabbat now we're dealing with. Okay, so we're on Mishnah Hey. Beit Shammai Omrim, Ner Mazon v'Samim v'Havdalah, Ubeit Hillel Omrim, Ner v'Samim u'Mazon v'Havdalah. So Beit Shammai says you would do the flame, the blessing on the flame, then Birkat HaMazon, then the blessing on the fragrant spices on the Besamim, and then Havdalah. And Beit Hillel says the flame, the fragrant spices, Birkat HaMazon, and Havdalah. So what are we talking about? First we have to say what our case is. We're talking about a case when you started a meal towards the end of Shabbat, and then it finishes after Shabbat, and you potentially only have one glass of wine that you're using for Havdalah and Birkat HaMazon, and the order in which you should do things in that kind of scenario. So they agree on what's first and what's last. They both agree that the candle is first because as soon as we get benefit from the light, we should make a blessing on it. And they both agree that Havdalah is last because we're sad to see Shabbat go. We want to recognize that as delayed as possible. So what are they disagreeing about? They're disagreeing about the order of the two in the middle, which is Birkat HaMazon and the fragrant spices. So why does Beit Shammai argue that the Birkat HaMazon should be first? That's because it's on food that we've already eaten. We already had the meal. As opposed to the Besamim, the spices we're going to smell and then make a blessing on. So we haven't done the thing yet, so he thinks you should do the one that you already ate, make that blessing first. That should take precedence. Beit Hillel is kind of instead pairing blessings together. So he's saying that it's better. Beit Hillel says it should be the Besamim and then the Birkat HaMazon, because the Besamim should be attached to the Ner. They're both having to do with something related to the departure of Shabbat. So we should pair them together, that is more relevant. Okay, continuing on. Beit Shammai Omrim, Shebara Meor Ha'esh, Ubeit Hillel Omrim, Borei Meorei Ha'esh. So now we're talking about their different way of saying the blessing on the candle, on the flame. Beit Shammai say, who created the illumination of fire, and Beit Hillel say, who creates the illuminations of fire. So two differences in the past or in the present tense of the word created or create. Beit Shammai uses the past tense. Beit Hillel uses the present tense, borei, and the difference in the plural or the singular of illumination, which Beit Shammai says illumination singular, and Beit Hillel says illuminations of fire plural. So why those differences? So we know that the candle that we light on for Havdalah has to do with the first Motzei Shabbat, when Adam Harishon, the first person, was given fire by God, and we're recognizing that moment that he was given fire and shown fire. So past tense would make sense for that reason. But also the language of creation, when we see creation early in the book of Genesis, in the first chapter of Genesis, we often see the word borei, that creation is this ongoing thing, and present tense can also be used to mean past, present, and future. Present tense is all encompassing in some certain scenarios, so that's why Beit Hillel believes it should be in the present tense, not just the one in the past, but all acts of creations. Okay? And why the difference in singular or plural of illuminations, that has to do with their different opinions the Gemara says about how the different colors within a fire, that there's not one single thing, but Beit Hillel is saying that there's multiple colors, multiple forms within the fire, and therefore should be in the plural. Okay, next Mishnah, Vav 6. Ein mevarchin lo al haner velo al habesamim shel ovdei kochavim. We do not recite the blessings over the flame or over the fragrant spices of idolaters. So now we're talking about whose Besamim and Ner can we use to make these blessings. So we can't use ones belonging to idolaters. So what would be the problem? There could be two problems here. It could be that specifically for the fire, maybe they use the fire itself for forbidden activity on Shabbat. Maybe they use the fire to cook, and now you're using the actual entity, the object that was used in a prohibited labor for this blessing, which would be a problem. It could also be that they're using it in their idolatrous ceremonies. So maybe the fire and the besamim were used in a physically used already in a way for some form of idol worship, and that would be a problem for us to get benefit from that. Velo al haner, velo al besamim shel metim, and not over the flame or over fragrant spices of the dead. So we know that the light and the light from the candle that we make the blessing on for Havdalah should be a light that is specifically for the sake of illumination. And it should be fragrant spices that are specifically for the sake of enjoying and smelling the spices. So the issue here would be if there is light or spices that are put near a corpse before the burial, that it's not for those purposes of just for illumination. It's actually for honoring that person or doing something that is considered a kindness, a goodness for the deceased, and the fragrant spices being there to counter maybe a possibly bad smell, as opposed to being there for its own sake of a good smell. So that would be a problem there, that it wasn't for just the sake that we need it to be for in order to use it for Havdalah. Velo al haner, velo al habisamim, shelifnei avodah zara. Okay, so this sounds really similar. Ein mevarchim al haner ad ye'otu la'oro. So, and nor on over the flame or fragrant spices placed before an idol. We do not recite the blessing over the flame until benefit is derived from the light. So the last part seems to be an answer to our first clause that has to do with maybe used in that belonging to idolaters would be used in a case of idolatry. And then also the blessing over the flame, we talked about this earlier, about we need to benefit from the light. So we need to have some way of that. So during Havdalah, we should be close to the light. We should be able to, that's why we look at our fingernails in the light so that it can be used for some function. We're differentiating between our fingernails and the finger. So we should experience the light, have some kind of useful function for it, be able to see something better in order for us to make that blessing. So it has to be light that illuminates, that it serves a function. Okay, we'll continue with Mishnah 7 of chapter 8 next week. Thank you for joining.